Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 466. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Are you ready to shape, accelerate, and uplift your brand and reach your greatest potential with founder and creative director, Shar Biggers? Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm perfect. Shar, I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business?
Of course. So, like she said, my name is Shar Biggers, and I'm the founder and creative director of Solea. It's based in New York. I have something special going on, and it is the fact that our studio is mission-based. Our goal is to approach branding and design from a perspective of helping to represent, uplift, motivate, and provide access to excellent branding for underrepresented founders. Typically, branding is out of, I would say, high-level branding, premium branding, the branding that you see on the shelves and that really does well in the marketplace. Those brands often are investing millions of dollars into their brands. And so that is typically out of access to underrepresented founders, Black and brown founders of businesses. And so often what happens is they have to cut corners in order for them to get branding for their companies. And in the long run, it ends up hurting our businesses. And so I saw this need here in the market after many years of working for different agencies and studios and client side for Fortune 500s. I just consistently saw this was a problem that I wanted to solve. And though I would bring it to the attention of those around me with the hopes that they could help in some sort of way or provide their services at a more accessible rate, create some sort of program, I just never did receive the response that I desired. And so I think it was after I worked on the Hillary Clinton campaign that I made the decision to be the change I essentially wanted to see after seeing such a great example of somebody doing something that took a lot of courage. And so I decided to come from behind the shadows of working with the bigger companies, which is what a lot of people in my industry end up doing, and to go and help the people that needed it the most. So I took all of my skills that I've used for the major companies, and I've decided to provide them for people that could use it. And so that's essentially kind of the background of how Solea got started. And that's why I'm here. So I'd love to share that information with your audience, because the big problem is that a lot of people don't know that we're here to help. And so here to share about that and also to help provide insights that maybe our people don't know.
And how long have you been in business?
I have been in business for 4 years now. We launched right before COVID hit, so that was quite an adventure.
What is something that we as entrepreneurs, specifically underrepresented entrepreneurs, that we don't know about branding that we should know?
I think one of the biggest things that's important to understand about branding, and actually I'd like to back up a little bit because it's not just branding, but I think how we are approaching business is something that we should think about, because of the fact that I think we as people of color, not just all of the listeners are people of color, but I want to specifically talk to people of color when I say this. A lot of times we might not realize, or we realize that all businesses are not necessarily equal, but I don't think we realize exactly how that affects our business outcomes. And the fact that, we have a lot of what I call unfair disadvantages kind of stacked up against us. And that, of course, goes from how we grow up a lot of us. And then, also how we work up the corporate ladder, that's all of us. And then a lot of times after, we run into glass ceilings there, we launch a business, right? But the problem is that we'll run into the same thing, some glass ceilings in that space as well. And then we often get stuck, and there's a reason that, there are no Black-owned Fortune 500 businesses to this day, right? Those are from unfair disadvantages that have been stacked up against us. And for white folks, they have unearned advantages that they have gotten through, simply being not a person of color, right? And so that means that all of the parts of business get affected for us, right? For example, one thing that I like to call out is the fact that 95% of the assets in our country are white owned. That means 5% of the assets are left. That means 70% of the country doesn't get to participate in the US market, right? And so as a result, we need to look at that and then see, okay, well, Black women, for example, are launching businesses 7% faster than any group, right? That's really, really impressive. But they're not reaching maturation. They're not actually growing at the level that they should. Instead, the majority of them are failing within the first 18 months. And I think we need to take a huge look at that, right? And so I've been been looking at this for a really long time. And I think one of the biggest things to call out for these businesses is the fact that there are narratives and stereotypes and tropes and things that get applied to our businesses when people see them. It's just a bias. And this is just one of the issues, right? But this is like I would say a really big issue that happens and affects us at the transaction, decision-making, brand touch point space, right? And that is the fact that oftentimes people see our businesses and then they make a decision that it's not for me. Or if they see Black owned, sometimes they make the decision, okay, that's for Black only, right? Or they make assumptions that the quality and services of the company are less than, that they're not as good as a white counterpart or even another person of color that may be of a lighter skin tone, a different race. And what we find through research is the darker the skin tone of the founder, the greater the effects of the lack of resources, opportunities, funding. And so Black businesses are specifically Black businesses, Indigenous businesses are being invested in less than 1%, right? And where you have 86% of businesses, if they're just white founded, they are getting investments at a percentage of 86.3%. I think the first thing to understand is that, okay, Houston, we have a problem. What's causing people to, one, not see us worthy of investment? And two, why is it that people are buying less from us when they see our businesses, right? Why are they not supporting us post 2020, right? That they were supporting us for a minute and then the support stopped. Why did the support stop? And I see a lot of us are sort of kind of fussing, like, hey, you guys should be continuing to support us. We still need this. And those are good things. But I think one of the things that gets missed, and this is to finally get to your question exactly, one of the things that gets missed is the fact that we, in any other area as people of color, show up and understand we've been taught, right, behind closed doors, that we have to be the best at what we do. We have to come, we have to come with the sauce. We have to come hard. We have to show up. If everyone's giving 100%, you as the Black person or person of color better show up and bring 300%. And I think that goes for, of course, all people of color. But I think there's of course, a very distinct history for Black folks where we have to show up much better, right? And we don't get the luxury of being average. But when it comes to our businesses, I'm going to say a hard thing. a lot of times we aren't doing that. We're not keeping the same energy, as they say, in that area. We're going hard to get the business off the ground. We're going hard for ourselves. Don't get me wrong. But when it comes to making sure, for example, that our brand identity is extremely cohesive across our platforms and our products, making sure we're telling a strong story, making sure that our designs enhance the value of our brand, making sure we're not cutting corners when we invest in certain things that affect buying decisions of our company, making sure that we're paying close attention to that and not approaching it in a sense, sort of like a deal, where it's like sometimes we have a tendency to approach sales to approach services, purchasing of services, like we're purchasing deals. I'm looking for the best deal on this. It's got to stick within this small budget. And the hard part about that is our competitors, which often we haven't studied well enough. Our competitors have invested at great numbers in this because it affects the bottom line greatly. And so if we approach it like we're looking for a deal with the hopes that we're going to come out way ahead, I think that's one of the areas where we kind of, kick ourselves in the foot, because people can see that aesthetically. And we only have a few ways to make buying decisions when we are purchasing services and products. And aesthetics, brand, which is beyond aesthetics, honestly, is a massive part of that.
Thank you for sharing that. What is the answer? Because one of the things you talked about was undercapitalization of diverse or under marginalized communities or businesses. And so when you talk about, which we know branding, marketing, and sales is key, and
Mm-hmm.
they're separate. So I don't want to confuse the audience. What is the answer for that? Because you're undercapitalized, and I hear you saying our branding, if I heard you correctly, we are not allocating the capital for that, and
Mm-hmm.
we're undercapitalized and just trying to stay afloat.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It feels a little bit like, okay, you can't win. What's the word? I think the phrase is you feel like you can't win. Yeah. I think it's just like some other areas, right? For example, like how we were just discussing funding, right? We aren't receiving the funding that we deserve, but we haven't given up, right? Even though less than 1% of us are receiving funding, but the biggest group that's launching businesses is us, right? Doesn't stop us from launching, doesn't stop us from still seeking capital. And we make the decision to sort of beat the wall down and create programs. Those of us that have power, that have some authority in spaces that we exist in, we're turning around and saying, okay, we can't wait on other people to help us. So therefore, I'm going to help. Okay, there aren't a lot of non-people of color that want to create and that want to invest in us using VC funding or angel investment. Okay, I'm Black. I have $1 billion business. I'm launching an investment firm, right? And I feel like those are solutions that we're starting to see. Oh, I'm Black. I'm successful, or I have the power, I have the connections to launch a cohort or an accelerator, right? And of course, there are non-people of color that are also helping and recognizing that they need to continue to help. So there's nothing to take away from that. That's wonderful. But for me, I think that those are the type of solutions that we're seeing kind of come up. But the thing is, in the space that I am in branding, it is majority white. And what I mean by that is most of the brand studios and agencies out there are white owned. I want to say the statistic is about 97%. It's the same in advertising, or very similar in advertising and marketing. And so here's what you have. I want to break it down for you, and then I will tie the question back up. And I'm so sorry if I'm long-winded, but I want to make sure I explain and give the details so people can understand. So what you have is you have sort of like these two sides of branding, where you have brand agencies and studios that are kind of like your formal style agency, and usually the founders and employees of those are going to be people that have been formally educated in the space of branding in business. They understand the ins and outs of how branding works, right? They're not being trained by like any gurus or any, like they've gone to school for this level of training, often up to a master's level. They've been trained in these spaces and special institutes that are just for design. Very, very expensive path. And so what ends up happening is they get out, they get experience in the industry for sometimes upwards 20, 30, 40 years, and then launch a studio or agency, and their professional expertise is so high, and the level in which they produce is going to be at a Fortune 500 level. But the pricing of that is going to be so high that, your average person of color, especially your Black person, your Black founder, is just not going to get access to that, because the prices are often $250K and up. Like this is normal in the industry. You want to get a brand identity, you need a website. You're looking at multiple six figures that goes into the millions for strong branding. And a lot of times our people don't actually know that. And so then on the other side, what you have is a lot of people of color also are there's another issue where they're kind of locked out of the industry, and they go to school, or they don't get to go to school because they don't have the funds. Remember, I said the industry is a very expensive industry to get into, to do it the way in which you have the skills to really do your job, and the training to really do your job. There are definitely some self-taught, I call them unicorns, where they're like, hey, I couldn't afford to go to design school. I couldn't afford that route. And so I taught myself. But the problem is that there is no barrier, or just like with a doctor, an electrician, there are licenses you have to get. In design, branding, advertising, there are no licenses or anything like that. Tomorrow you can just become a creative or become a person in advertising, go take a course and then say I'm take an online course and then say I'm this, right? The problem with that is that often people end up offering services they are not professionally quite qualified for. And I'm not saying that if you don't have education, that means you're automatically not saying that. But there are a lot of people, because of this lack of kind of requirement for proof of being able to be an expert in the space, a lot of businesses are getting hurt, right? And I would say one of the biggest spaces that are getting hurt are Black founders, because we're looking for the deals, right? And so then we go searching for the folks that they might not be educated well in the space. They weren't formally trained in design. They don't understand how branding really works. And they study a few books. And so it sounds like they have just enough lingo. But what ends up happening is it hurts the businesses in the end who are trying to compete. For example, you pull out a beverage and you're Black owned, and you paid for branding $500, let's say, and then you're trying to compete with the Coca-Colas of the world who have spent millions, right? I mean, Coca-Cola beyond millions, right? But I'm just saying a lot of those beverage companies, for example, they've spent so much money. So what are the chances that your $500 branding with professionals that have unfortunately weren't trained enough end up helping you really strongly compete? It doesn't. And so what happens is people can tell the difference when they see the aesthetics, and then it reaffirms the narrative in their head that it's not strong enough, right? Or it's not a quality service or product. So to tie in where the solution comes in is, and I know we took a really long way around, but to tie in where the solution comes in is the people who are well trained in branding. We have worked with the Fortune 500s. We know the secrets and the strategies to get you to the top. We know the ins and outs, how to build your business, how to scale it, how to use marketing and branding to really set you apart, but then also how to focus on your operations as the strong competitors do, and how not to cut corners in those spaces so that when we present well, our business also doesn't fall behind the backside of that, because our quality level of how we're doing operations, right, wasn't as strong, right? So presenting strong in the front and the back, well, that's going to require somebody to step up, similar to how investors have been stepping up and saying, hey, I wasn't an investor, I wasn't a founder, but I'm becoming an investor so we can narrow the gap here, the racial wealth gap here. So same thing is happening with me. I have made a formal decision that unlike a lot of the peers, and no shade to them, I'm not going to focus on continuing to build the Fortune 500. They don't need me. All the companies are dedicated to them, right? I am taking the skill set from that and making a decision to create a program, which I did create a program to provide that level of support where we support on all ends, come in and turn the thing inside out and rebuild it up to a level where it can truly compete, and doing it at an accessible rate, doing it through a program. So we offer our clients, we offer a POC, a person of color underrepresented founder program, where we provide branding at excellent branding, premium branding at a rate that is much more affordable that you would not typically see. We pull the market rate down for the services so that we can help those that need it most. So, and the ultimate goal is not only just for helping, of course, but it's also to help the country, because if we don't do something about the huge racial wealth gap, we may not stay the number one wealth power. And so more programs have to get created. And a lot of people aren't talking about this enough. But if the majority of the US market is not, or a majority of the people in the country that are in business are not able to really truly participate in the US market, are being blocked out, right? Being starved of resources, being starved of true professional services, they won't be able to get ahead. And then it affects the bottom line, the GDP of the country, right? So I think the answer is creating programs. And that's what I'm at least trying to do in the branding space.
What is your zone of genius?
My zone of genius. I've never gotten that question before, but I would say I often call things like my superpowers. I have a few superpowers. I'm unique in the sense that I went to school, of course, for design. I worked in advertising and design for years, and I also have studied psychology and almost went down that road of psychology and then neuropsychology for like literally was starting a PhD program as a result of that, and then turning around and getting my MBA. So a lot of education and experience has caused me to have an interesting, unique set of skills where I understand people and buying decisions. I understand sort of the organizational psychology of things, but then at the same time, I understand how to scale businesses. I've had my own successful product-based business before. Now I'm in a service-based business. I understand what it means to be an entrepreneur, understand that side of things. And so being that really helped me coming into creating Solea, because when I help businesses, I'm not just helping them in their branding. Often my clients will say this was a completely transformative process because I will use the skill sets that I have built as an entrepreneur, plus the skill sets I've built being in the room and at the table with the Fortune 500s, right? I'm able to pull that and then all the other things to help them really shape up their businesses in a strong way. And so I'd say that my superpowers, they always come down to creating and running a beautiful, tight ship and helping people also give birth to purpose. Because one other interesting fact about me is I'm also in ministry. So I'm a minister, and as much as like sometimes I used to wish I could separate that in business, I don't. And now I embrace it. And often my clients, not all of them, but I would definitely say my people of color tend to They get a nurturing founder who comes alongside them and co-parents this project together. And often a whole lot of ministering happens at the same time. And I would say I'm definitely built and shaped and made for that. And so what it produces is a really transformative process for my clients, who often end up being friends and like sisters and brothers by the end.
And what is your purpose, Share?
My purpose, that's a loaded question. I would say that my purpose is, it's multi-dimensional. It's not just one thing. I've got kind of a blueprint in which I believe I'm called to walk out. And so for me, this is absolutely just the beginning. But I would say ultimately one of the goals of my purpose, staying in line with what we're discussing, is to open the doors for those who come behind me, and to help people be able to get access and get into rooms and spaces and places they weren't able to before. The work that we are doing, we've seen it literally transform a company, take them from going from, I couldn't get into retailers, we couldn't secure any funding, we were stuck, we couldn't go any further than this. And then I'm like, okay, let's get started, transform everything, turn it inside out, and then watch them be able to get investment, watch them be led into the the big box national retailers, and then watch them be able to scale up and hire in their communities and provide opportunities through internships and make people employees that were not able to get those opportunities prior. And so that work really, I feel like, it gives me so much purpose to be able to see that transformation happen. It's not easy. It's not overnight, but we watch it happen and we help give people the tools to make that happen. And so right now, I'd say I'm really, really zeroed in on that purpose of opening the doors so that more people can reach a true level of wealth that I don't think that we've really been able to attain as we've deserved in the past.
Only share the information that you can about one of your success stories with your client.
Sure. Okay. So actually, I'll talk about a brand that is a body care brand. So when they came, this particular body care brand was not able to, they were stuck. They were not able to receive the funding that they needed. They had a following online, but they kind of had hit a ceiling, and they were trying to get into retailers, certain major retailers. But I always tell the story of the fact that it was funny because, they were like, we can't seem to get in here and here, and people are giving us a no, and they felt like it was a bit unfair. But then when I got a chance to sit down with them, and then we went through the products and we went through the packaging and the design, they had invested, I want to say like $200 maybe into the branding. And then they made the packaging themselves, right? So what they didn't know is that they were using materials that you can't actually put into stores. Stores will automatically reject it if certain materials are being used because it's harmful, or it can't, from whatever reason, those materials cannot work on shelves, right? And so a lot of times what ends up happening with my clients is we as people are entering the business space, and I'm so proud of it. But a lot of times for the first time, we might be the first family member that's entering the space of business. And so a lot of times we don't know what we don't know. Right. And so we create to the best of our ability. We try to be the everything in our business. We try to be the designer. We try to be the producer. We try to be the manager. We try to be everything because we're underfunded and we don't have the resources. And so, but what ends up happening is then we use our skills the best that we can, but we don't have the skills in that space. And so then we try to push forward and people say no. And so then the retailers are like, no, I'm sorry, you can't get in. They don't give you any explanation. They don't give you much of an explanation. Right. And so then you're kind of left feeling like you might be being discriminated against. And that could be absolutely true. But then at the same time, there are probably some things that you might not know. And then we have to work really hard and spend a whole lot more time than other people would to find out the information that we need or why we're being held back in a space. And so with this particular company, what we ended up doing was I sat them down and said, hey, okay, so your packaging is using materials that can't be sustained in retail. That's probably a big reason why it's the logo is not well done, right? There are some logos you can get away with that are not being well done, but a lot of the times, like all these things, of course, they're adding up. They're adding up to your unfair disadvantages on top of those, right? And so that was a problem. The branding had not been invested in, but the goal was to compete with some of the biggest bath and body brands out there. And so we had to figure out, okay, if we want to compete at that level, because not everybody does, but if we want to compete at that level, we're going to have to bring the chops to compete at that level. And so we spent quite a while in our program, in the POC program, to help them and turn the brand inside out. We redid everything from the packaging, even the product. The product was handmade, right? There are things that people don't understand when you have handmade products, but you want to go into retail. Okay, this thing has to be something that can scale. Well, if it's handmade, everything you produce, every single one is going to be different, right? So there are some disadvantages, some challenges with that. We needed to redo the products, right? We renamed the products to something that aligned with the brand and the strategy that we created. And we did everything from start to finish and took it from a place where, okay, you had a wonderful product, but you didn't have a brand that helped communicate narrative, right? You didn't have a timeless brand. We made everything consistent. We got the brand message consistent across all the different platforms. We brought up the quality of the product. We knocked out people believing or feeling when they saw it that it was too unprofessional, or that we focused also on making sure we tightened up the customer service, didn't rely too much on trends, right? Created a strong brand guidelines, brought up the imagery. We did everything from start to finish, made a website that was truly shoppable and beautiful, and that you can't tell the difference between this and between the heavily invested, right? The goal is to make it where you don't see a strong difference between the two, where there can be bias. We're trying to remove and mitigate bias, right? And so for them, we were able to do that. And out of that came investment from a major investment firm, I would say in the top 5 investment firms. And they told them they had $1 million brand. And so, yeah, that's an example. I have other wonderful examples. I've just been really excited to see the power of brand be able to change the lives of our clients.
That's a great story. Shar, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
Oh my God. Wow. That's quite a question. Okay. What would I ask myself? I probably would ask why I'm doing this. Maybe that's the best thing I can come up with at this moment. Why am I doing this? Why would you do this? Why wouldn't you go after the money? Why? I think that the reason why this is important is I can't tell you, Dr. Francis, how often I constantly hear people say to me, I think maybe just a couple of days ago, this week, I had someone say to me, there's not enough money in helping. And they'll often say, these people, there's not enough money in helping those people. Why? Like, you should target and focus on people that have money. We're not in business for fun. We're in business to make money, to make the most money we possibly can. That's capitalism, period. We live by that. This is America. Why focus on that group? They're the group that doesn't have money. Are you trying to go out of business? What are you trying to do? This is was a dumb positioning, right? And people will tell me that behind closed doors pretty often. And sometimes people even beg me, consultants, all kinds of people will say, hey, I don't think this is a smart decision. I think you should rethink about this positioning. But this is the thing. I think it was Frida and Mitchell Kapoor. They own Kapoor Capital, if I'm not mistaken, the name of the company, the VC firm. It was them that I think summed it up best for me because they talk about in their book. I think they just have one book, and I read it and it hit me so hard because the reason and purpose in which they launched their firm, it resonated with me because it was why I did mines, and they could have went and funded the way a lot of other funds do, but they realized something that I couldn't quite put into words when people would say this to me. And that was the fact that impact and diversity, when you invest in helping in that space, there's going to be financial concessions. So if you're investing for impact or, trying to be a company that more accurately reflects our racial and ethnic diverse communities that we have, you're going to give up some financial returns. Right. I walked away from a lot to do this. I literally, in the midst of creating this, walked away from one of the biggest opportunities I'd ever gotten. And I've gotten some wonderful opportunities. I've been completely blessed, but I had to look at some money in the face and say, I'm not going to take it. I'm going to start from scratch and help a group and help a people that need it the most and help our country ultimately be able to be balanced in who it is that walks in wealth, right? So I want to focus on the people that don't historically get the attention that they deserve. And I also feel that financial returns alone don't determine success. I feel that real success creates multidimensional value for communities, not just monetary wealth for founders and investors. And so that's why I'm doing this.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Rapid Round of Fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give me very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Rapid Round of Fun?
I think so.
Okay. What is your favorite comfort food?
Ooh, French fries.
The last movie you saw?
Oh my God, I can't remember. You know why? I haven't seen a movie in a year plus because I try to abstain from because I have so many things on my plate that I'm working on. I try to abstain from the things that are really distracting and practice a certain disciplines. And so TV and social media, I've tried to tighten up on. So I have gotten a lot more disciplined. And that's because I used to be a heavy TV movie watcher. So I backed away from it. So I can't even remember the last movie I saw.
You relax doing what?
I relax. Ooh, spas, facials. I love reading books. I relax sleeping. Catching up on sleep is good. Hanging out with friends, going into the city, going into New York, eating some good brunch, traveling.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Favorite singer, I would say this changes a lot because I'm a lover of music. So I can't say that I'm like a diehard fan to just one person. I tend to love songs, and I kind of change up what I'm listening to after I kind of wear it out. So I can't say I'm loyal to just one person. But right now I'm listening a lot to a singer named Cass, a rapper named Hovey, Trip Lee, and I would say those are some pretty good ones right there.
Your favorite dance song?
There's a song, I'm really enjoying. I don't know what you call this genre of Nigerian music, but there is a very specific genre of Nigerian music right now that I've been like killing. And it's like a type of dance sound. I cannot remember the name of it, but I've been like, I think just last night, I probably played it about 7 times back to back.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
What food I eat every week, no matter what. I probably eat the thing I shouldn't be eating every week is French fries, and I'm trying to cut that. I will probably at least have a fry before the week is out. But I am trying to change that habit over to having beet juices or this sort of citrus style of juicing that I've been doing. So I'm trying to change out to having that really every day or every other day. And I've been doing pretty well for the last couple of months.
Your ideal car?
My ideal car. I'm not sure. I think because I'm trying to get away from the focus of material things. And so I haven't really, I don't know. I guess if somebody gave me a car that I never had to pay for ever a day in my life and it was free, maybe a Mercedes. But I tend to think about money in ways that I can invest in other ways that it can grow for me and not depreciate. So I don't even really think about cars that much.
Shar Biggers, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you and to do business with you. And feel free to leave all your social media handles.
Of course. So the best way to get in contact and even see our work and learn more about our program is going to be Saleah, our website, saleah.agency. That is SALEAH.agency, Saleah.agency. My name, of course, is Shar Biggers. You can look me up online to find us, find me on LinkedIn. I'm probably the most active on LinkedIn, which is not that active because I'm not as much a social media person. As I explained, I try to not focus as much pull away from some of the distractions so that I can focus on what's on my plate. But people can find me at our website. We do have an Instagram. It is at Saleah.agency as well. So just like the website. And on LinkedIn, Saleah Agency, or under my personal LinkedIn, Shar Biggers. And you can get in contact by going to the website and submitting an email via the website, or just shooting us an email at hi@saleah.agency, and we'll be sure to get back to you and schedule a meeting with you to discuss your project needs. So I hope this was helpful to the audience. If it was, I would love for somebody to just even shoot me a message or something, because we don't get to hear a whole lot of feedback. We're super active in our industry, but we're trying to get out in front of those who need us the most. And so, we're always welcome to hear any feedback. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.